I never thought success could feel like betrayal until the day Marcus Kane called me into his office. I was 28 years old, the youngest senior account manager at Kane and Associates, and I had just closed a $12 million deal with Rothman Industries. The champagne was still chilling in the break room when his assistant told me the CEO wanted to see me. Immediately, the walk to his corner office felt different that day. The fluorescent lights seemed harsher, the carpet quieter under my feet. I remember adjusting my tie, thinking maybe this was about the promotion to VP that everyone had been whispering about. I'd earned it. In 3 years, I'd brought in over $40 million in new business. My client retention rate was 98%. I'd built relationships with some of the biggest names in the industry, relationships that other firms would kill for. Marcus didn't stand when I entered. That should have been my first warning. He always stood, always shook your hand, always made you feel like you were the most important person in the building. Not today. Today, he sat behind his mahogany desk, fingers steepled, eyes cold. There was someone else in the room. A woman, maybe 24, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a designer suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She was leaning against the window, scrolling through her phone like she owned the place. "Sit down," Marcus said. No preamble. No smile. Sat. My stomach twisted into a knot. "I'm letting you go, effective immediately." The words didn't make sense. I actually laughed. "Is this a joke? Marcus, I just brought in Rothman. That's the biggest account we've landed in 5 years. Your performance has been inconsistent." He wouldn't meet my eyes. The man who had praised me in front of the entire company last month, who had called me the future of this firm, couldn't look at me. "We're restructuring. Your position is being eliminated." Restructuring? My position? Marcus, I am the top performer in this company. Check the numbers. Check any metric you want. The woman at the window finally looked up from her phone. "The decision has been made," she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "We need fresh perspectives, new energy." "I'm sorry, who are you?" I asked. Marcus cleared his throat. "This is Vanessa. She's joining the senior management team." And then I understood. The way he looked at her. The way she looked at him. The diamond bracelet on her wrist that I'd seen Marcus browsing for online 2 weeks ago. I thought it was for his wife. "You're firing me to give her my job?" I said slowly. "You're firing the person who's brought in more revenue than anyone else in this company because you're sleeping with someone who wants my position." Vanessa's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Watch your tone. You're lucky we're not pursuing legal action for some of your questionable client interactions." Questionable. "Everything I've done has been by the book. Every contract, every deal, every—" "Enough," Marcus cut me off. "Security will escort you out. You have 30 minutes to pack your desk. Your final paycheck will be mailed. Sign this non-disclosure agreement or we'll withhold your severance." The NDA was already prepared, already signed by Marcus. They'd planned this. How long? A week? A month? How long had I been working my ass off, celebrating victories, while they plotted to destroy everything I'd built? My hands shook as I stared at the document. Non-disclosure, non-compete. 6 months I couldn't work for any competing firm within a 500-mile radius. 6 months without income in the most expensive city in the country. "This is illegal," I said. "A non-compete this restrictive won't hold up in court." "Try us," Vanessa said. "We have better lawyers than you can afford." I signed. What choice did I have? I needed that severance. 3 months of salary wouldn't last long, but it was better than nothing. Marcus watched me sign with something that might have been regret in his eyes, but I didn't care anymore. I stood up, left the papers on his desk, and walked out without another word. Security followed me to my desk. Everyone in the office was watching. Some looked away. Some whispered. Jennifer from accounting was crying. She'd always said I was the only executive who actually cared about the support staff. Tom, my assistant, looked furious. He started to stand up, but I shook my head. Don't make this worse." I packed my things in a cardboard box. Photos of my graduation, awards, a coffee mug from my first client. My Rolodex was in my desk drawer, 3 years of contacts, notes, personal cell phone numbers. I reached for it, but the security guard stepped forward. "Only personal items, sir." "That's my personal Rolodex. It contains company contacts. It stays." I stared at him. He was just doing his job. They all were. But in that moment, I hated everyone in that building. I hated Marcus for his weakness. I hated Vanessa for her ambition. I hated myself for not seeing this coming. The walk to the elevator was the longest of my life. Behind me, I could hear Vanessa's heels clicking on the tile floor. She was already moving into my office, probably. Already calling my clients, introducing herself as their new point of contact. Already erasing me. Outside, the March wind cut through my suit jacket. I stood on the sidewalk holding a box of my life's work, watching people stream past. They all had somewhere to go, jobs to get to, purpose. I had nothing. 3 months of severance and a career in ruins. My phone buzzed. A text from Tom. They're making her senior VP. Started today. I'm sorry, man, this is bullshit. I called Jennifer that night. Then Tom. Then Sarah from the legal department, who'd always been straight with me. I called every friend I had in that company, and slowly the full picture emerged. Marcus and Vanessa had been seeing each other for 6 months. She'd been consulting for the company, brought in by Marcus's wife, irony of ironies, to help with some marketing strategy. They'd started an affair. She wanted more. Power, position, prestige. And Marcus, 52 years old and stupid with infatuation, had given her whatever she wanted. The plan had been in motion for 2 months. They'd been documenting every tiny mistake I made, every deadline that ran close, every client meeting that went long. They'd been building a case, making sure that when they fired me, it would stick, making sure I couldn't fight back, but they'd made one critical mistake. They assumed I was just an employee. They assumed the relationships I'd built were with the company, not with me personally. They assumed that when I left, the clients would stay. They were wrong. I spent the first week in shock, barely leaving my apartment. I lived on delivery pizza and anger. My girlfriend Amy tried to comfort me, but I pushed her away. I was ashamed. Humiliated. I'd been so proud of my success, and it had been taken away like I was nothing. Like 3 years of blood and sweat meant nothing because some CEO wanted to impress his mistress. The second week, something changed. I was going through my phone, looking at all the personal cell numbers I'd collected over the years. The clients who'd given me their direct lines. The ones who'd invited me to dinners, golf games, their kids' graduations. David Rothman, who'd closed that $12 million deal, had told me at the signing, "You're the only reason I went with Kane and Associates. You get it. You understand my business. Don't ever leave or I'm following you wherever you go. Don't ever leave or I'm following you." I called David at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. He answered on the first ring. "I was wondering when I'd hear from you," he said. "Heard about what happened. Marcus called me himself, introduced me to some young woman who couldn't tell me the difference between a P&L statement and a balance sheet." "Vanessa," I said. "That's the one. She's been calling me every day. I haven't returned her calls." "David, I need to ask you something. If I started my own firm, would you consider bringing your account to me?" The silence stretched. "Then, send me the paperwork as soon as it's ready. You've got my business." That was the first domino. I called Margaret Chen next. She ran a tech startup that I'd helped secure a $20 million funding round for. She didn't even let me finish my pitch. "Where do I sign?" "Marcus Kane is an idiot for letting you go." Vanessa tried to schedule a meeting with me. I canceled it. I was going to terminate our contract with Kane and Associates anyway. Then Richard Blackwood. Then Sophia Martinez. Then James Patterson. Client after client, they said yes. Not to Kane and Associates. To me. Because I'd taken the time to learn their businesses, their goals, their challenges. Because I'd answered calls at midnight and on weekends. Because I'd built trust. Within 2 weeks, I had commitments from 15 clients representing over $60 million in annual revenue. I had a problem, though, the non-compete. If I started a competing firm within 500 miles, Kane and Associates could sue me into oblivion. They could tie me up in court for years, drain whatever capital I'd managed to scrape together. But the non-compete said I couldn't work for a competing firm. It didn't say anything about relocating. I called my uncle who lived in Denver. Colorado was 530 miles away, outside the non-compete radius. I could set up an office there, work remotely with my clients for 6 months, and then move back if I wanted to, or stay. Denver was booming. The tech scene was exploding. There was opportunity there. I maxed out my credit cards, emptied my savings account, and cashed in my 401k. The penalties were brutal, but I had $50,000. Enough for office space, some basic equipment, a lawyer to help me incorporate. I found a tiny office in downtown Denver, 2 rooms and a kitchenette, and hung out my shingle, Peterson Strategic Consulting, my name, my firm, my rules. The first month was chaos. I was working 18-hour days, managing accounts from a card table in an empty office. I hired Tom away from Kane and Associates. They couldn't enforce his non-compete because he wasn't in a competitive role. He became my first employee, my right hand. Then Sarah from legal, who was tired of watching Marcus make decision after stupid decision. Then Jennifer, who'd been passed over for promotion 3 times because she wasn't willing to flirt with the executive team. We worked like dogs. We lived on coffee and ambition. And slowly, steadily, we built something real. By month 3, we had 22 clients. By month 6, 35. Every time Vanessa reached out to one of my former clients, they politely declined and signed with us instead. Every time Marcus tried to salvage a relationship, he found out I'd already locked it down. I wasn't stealing clients. I was keeping relationships that I'd built. There's a difference. The 6th month was almost up when I got the call from Marcus. I was in my Denver office, now expanded to a full floor with 10 employees, when his name popped up on my phone. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. "You son of a bitch," he said. "No greeting, no pleasantries. You violated your non-compete. I've got lawyers ready to bury you. Check the address, Marcus. I'm in Denver, 530 miles from your office. I followed the terms exactly. You stole my clients. I maintain my professional relationships. That's not theft. That's called being good at my job. You know, the job you fired me from so your mistress could play executive. Vanessa is. How's that working out for you, by the way? The Vanessa experiment? I heard you lost 8 more accounts last quarter. Something about inconsistent service and lack of industry knowledge. Must be tough watching your company hemorrhage revenue." He was breathing hard on the other end of the line. "I will destroy you. I will take everything you've built and burn it to the ground. You already tried that, Marcus. It didn't work. But please, go ahead, sue me, waste your money on lawyers. I've got 35 clients who will testify that I built those relationships on my own time, with my own effort. I've got documentation of every lunch I paid for personally, every golf game I played on weekends, every birthday card I sent with my own money. You can't claim ownership of relationships you never bothered to build." He hung up. I smiled for the first time in months, but Marcus wasn't done. 2 weeks later, I was served with a lawsuit. Kane and Associates versus Peterson Strategic Consulting. Breach of contract. Tortious interference. They were claiming I'd violated the spirit of the non-compete by maintaining contact with clients during the 6-month period. They wanted damages. They wanted my client list. They wanted me destroyed. The legal battle stretched for 8 months. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Rebecca Chen, who charged $200 an hour I couldn't really afford, fought them at every turn. We countersued for wrongful termination. We subpoenaed Marcus's emails and discovered he'd been planning my firing for months, documenting false performance issues, manufacturing a paper trail to justify giving my position to Vanessa. We also discovered that Vanessa had lied about her qualifications. Her MBA, from an online diploma mill. Her 10 years of experience, 3 years as an executive assistant, and 7 years bouncing between failed startups. Marcus had been so blinded by infatuation that he'd never bothered to verify anything. He destroyed my career for a woman who couldn't manage a lemonade stand. The discovery phase was brutal for Kane and Associates. Client after client testified that they'd left because of poor service after I was fired. They testified that Vanessa was incompetent, that Marcus was distracted, that the company had fallen apart without me. The numbers didn't lie. Kane and Associates' revenue had dropped 40% in the year since I left. They'd laid off 15 people. They were hemorrhaging money, and then the real bombshell dropped. Marcus's wife filed for divorce. She'd found out about the affair, about the financial damage Marcus had done to the company chasing Vanessa's approval. She owned 40% of Kane and Associates through the prenuptial agreement. She wanted her share. In cash, the company couldn't afford it. Marcus had to take out loans against the business, putting up the office building as collateral. The stress was killing him. I saw a photo in a business journal. He'd aged 10 years in one. Gray hair, sunken eyes, the look of a man watching everything he'd built crumble. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt nothing. He was destroying himself. I didn't need to do anything but watch. The lawsuit settled out of court. Marcus agreed to drop all claims if I agreed not to countersue for wrongful termination. No money changed hands, just a mutual agreement to walk away. My lawyer called it a victory. I called it closure. By the time the lawsuit ended, I'd been in business for a year and a half. Peterson Strategic Consulting had 50 employees, 70 clients, and annual revenue of $90 million. We just signed a lease on a second office in San Francisco. Tom was now my chief operating officer. Sarah was general counsel. Jennifer was running our HR department and had just hired her 20th employee. We were successful beyond my wildest dreams. And it all started because Marcus Kane thought he could erase me. I didn't move back to New York. Denver was home now. I bought a house in the foothills, met someone new, Rachel, a trauma surgeon who understood long hours and high stakes. Life was good, better than good. but the universe wasn't done with Marcus Kane. 2 years after he fired me, I got an invitation to an industry conference in Chicago. I'd been nominated for an award, Executive of the Year, recognizing innovation and growth. I almost didn't go. These things were usually boring, full of glad handing and fake smiles, but Tom convinced me. "You deserve this," he said. "Go accept your award. Show everyone what you've built." The conference was at the Hilton, a massive hotel with crystal chandeliers and carpets thick enough to lose your shoes in. I was registered at the VIP reception when I saw them. Marcus and Vanessa. He was wearing a suit that looked slept in. She was still beautiful, but there was a hardness around her eyes that hadn't been there before. They were standing in a corner, arguing in hushed tones. I should have walked away, should have avoided the confrontation. But I'd had 2 glasses of champagne and 3 years of suppressed anger, and I walked right up to them. "Marcus, Vanessa, what a surprise." They both turned. Marcus went pale. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I'm being honored tonight, Executive of the Year." "You," Marcus cleared his throat. We're here for the conference." "Trying to salvage what's left of Kane and Associates?" I asked pleasantly. "I heard you lost the Rothman account last month. That must have hurt. That was a good account. 12 million a year, if I remember correctly." "We're doing fine," Vanessa snapped. "Really? Because I heard you've laid off 40 people in the last year. I heard you had to sell the office building to pay off your business loans. I heard your wife took you to the cleaners in the divorce." "Marcus, 40% of nothing is still nothing." Marcus looked like he might cry. "You destroyed my company." "No," I said, and all the lightness left my voice. "You destroyed your company when you let your dick make your business decisions. You destroyed your company when you fired the best employee you had because your mistress wanted his job. You destroyed your company when you chose someone's pretty face over actual competence. I didn't do anything except survive. I built something new, something better, something that doesn't depend on nepotism and affairs and lies." "You stole my clients," he said weakly. "I maintained my relationships. There's a difference. Those clients chose me. They chose competence over loyalty to a brand. They chose someone who actually cared about their success over someone who was too busy screwing his girlfriend to answer their calls." Vanessa's face was red. "You're an arrogant piece of, I'm successful. There's a difference between arrogance and confidence. I earned every client I have." "What have you earned, Vanessa, besides Marcus's alimony payments?" That hit home. Marcus flinched. Apparently they weren't together anymore either. The affair had burned itself out, leaving nothing but wreckage in its wake. "We should go," Marcus said quietly. He looked broken, small. The man who'd fired me with such cold efficiency was gone, replaced by this hollow shell. I watched them walk away, and I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no revenge, just a profound sense of having dodged a bullet. If I'd stayed at Kane and Associates, I'd be going down with that sinking ship. Marcus had done me a favor, even if he'd meant to destroy me. That night, I accepted the Executive of the Year award in front of 500 industry leaders. I gave a speech about resilience, about building relationships, about the importance of integrity in business. I didn't mention Marcus or Vanessa or Kane and Associates. They weren't worth mentioning. They were a footnote in my story, not the main chapter. After the ceremony, David Rothman found me at the bar. He shook my hand, grinning. "Hell of a speech. And well-deserved. You've built something special." "Thank you, David. I couldn't have done it without clients like you taking a chance on me." "Taking a chance? Please. You were the safest bet I ever made. How's the expansion into the West Coast going?" "Good. We're opening a Lowe's Angels office next quarter. I've got some contacts out there. Let me make some introductions. I know at least 3 companies that could use your services." That was the thing Marcus never understood. Business isn't about contracts and non-competes and legal threats. It's about relationships. It's about showing up, doing the work, caring about outcomes. It's about being someone people want to bet on. 3 years after I started Peterson Strategic Consulting, we hit 200 employees and annual revenue of $350 million. We'd expanded into 6 cities. We'd been featured in Forbes, Businessweek, and the Wall Street Journal. I'd been interviewed on CNBC about the future of strategic consulting. Kane and Associates filed for bankruptcy protection. Marcus sold what was left of the company to a private equity firm for pennies on the dollar. I heard he was working as a consultant now, charging by the hour, scraping by. Vanessa had moved to LA and was trying to break into real estate. I didn't wish them ill. I didn't wish them anything. They were irrelevant. I was having dinner with Rachel, celebrating our engagement, when my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn message. It was from Marcus. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. I owe you an apology, the message read. What I did was unforgivable. I let my personal life destroy my professional judgment. I hurt you, I hurt my company, I hurt everyone who depended on me. You built something amazing from the ashes of what I tried to destroy. I just wanted you to know that I see that. I see what I lost. Congratulations on your success, you earned it. Marcus, I showed the message to Rachel. She read it, handed back my phone, and said, "Are you going to respond?" I thought about it. Thought about all the anger I'd carried, all the nights I'd lain awake plotting revenge, imagining confrontations, dreaming of the day I'd rub Marcus's face in my success. And I realized I didn't need to. He already knew. The best revenge wasn't words or gestures or public humiliation. It was this: building something so successful that he couldn't ignore it. Living so well that his apology meant nothing because I'd already moved on. "No," I said. "I'm not going to respond." "Good," Rachel said, raising her champagne glass. "To us, to the future, to leaving the past where it belongs." We toasted. The champagne was French, expensive, perfectly chilled. I could afford it now. I could afford anything. Not because I'd destroyed Marcus Kane, but because I'd refused to let him destroy me. That's the thing about betrayal. It can break you, or it can forge you into something stronger. When Marcus fired me, he thought he was ending my career. He thought he was clearing space for Vanessa, proving his devotion, securing his affair. Instead, he freed me to build something better than I ever could have under his roof. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is the best thing that ever happened. You just can't see it in the moment. I learned that business success isn't about crushing your enemies or getting revenge. It's about being so good at what you do that people choose you, not out of obligation, but because you're simply the best option. It's about building trust, one relationship at a time, until you have a foundation that can't be shaken by one man's poor decisions. I also learned that success is the best revenge not because it hurts your enemies, but because it makes them irrelevant. Marcus wanted to hurt me. In the end, he hurt himself. I didn't have to do anything except refuse to quit. Refuse to give up. Refuse to let his betrayal define me. 5 years after that day in Marcus's office, Peterson Strategic Consulting was acquired by a Fortune 500 company for $800 million. I retained 20% ownership and stayed on as CEO of the newly formed division. Tom, Sarah, Jennifer, and the team that had believed in me from the beginning all received life-changing payouts. I used part of my proceeds to start a foundation for people who'd been wrongfully terminated. Legal aid, job placement services, mental health support. Because I remembered what it felt like to stand on that sidewalk with a cardboard box, feeling like my world had ended. I wanted to make sure others didn't have to face that alone. The foundation's first case was a woman named Lisa who'd been fired after reporting sexual harassment by her supervisor. We paid for her legal team, helped her find a new job, and supported her through the 2-year legal battle that ended with a 7-figure settlement and her harasser facing criminal charges. "You saved my life," she told me at the settlement celebration. I was going to give up. I didn't think I could fight them. "Yes, you could," I said. "You just needed someone to believe in you. Someone did that for me once. I'm just paying it forward." That was the real victory. Not the money, not the success, not the award or the recognition. The victory was using what I'd built to help others who were where I'd been. The victory was turning pain into purpose. I still think about that day sometimes. The day Marcus called me into his office and destroyed my life. I think about the fear, the humiliation, the absolute certainty that I was finished. And then I look around at what I built from those ashes. Peterson Strategic Consulting employs over 500 people across 12 cities. We manage billions of dollars in client assets. We've launched careers, saved companies, and changed lives. And it all started because one man was stupid enough to confuse sex with strategy. Marcus gave me the greatest gift he could have, even though he meant it as a curse. He gave me freedom. Freedom to build something that was truly mine. Freedom to prove that success isn't about who you know or who you're sleeping with, but about the value you create. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Marcus had promoted me instead of firing me. I'd probably still be there, a senior vice president, earning a good salary, slowly climbing the ladder. Comfortable. Successful by most standards. But I never would have built Peterson Strategic Consulting. I never would have known what I was capable of when everything was on the line. Betrayal is a teacher if you let it be. It teaches you who you really are. It teaches you what you're made of. It teaches you that sometimes the worst day of your life is just the prologue to the best chapter, Rachel and I got married in Aspen, surrounded by the people who'd believed in me when I had nothing but a dream and a chip on my shoulder. David Rothman was there. Tom was my best man. Sarah officiated. She'd got her minister's license online as a surprise. Jennifer cried through the entire ceremony. Marcus wasn't invited, not out of spite, but because he wasn't part of this story anymore. He was a plot device, a catalyst, the thing that happened to set everything else in motion. But the story wasn't about him. It never was. It was about me, about choosing to build instead of breaking, about turning anger into action, about refusing to let someone else's poor decisions become my tragedy. The last I heard, Marcus was doing okay. Not great, but okay. He'd remarried, moved to Phoenix, was working for a small consulting firm doing good work. He'd learned his lesson the hard way. I didn't hate him anymore. I didn't think about him at all, except in moments like this, when I wanted to remember where I came from. Because that's the final lesson. The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so full, so rich, so meaningful that the people who tried to destroy you become nothing more than a cautionary tale you tell at dinner parties. It's success so complete that their names are forgotten while yours is remembered. Marcus Kane fired me to hire his mistress. He thought he was ending my career. Instead, he started it. And for that, in a strange way, I'm grateful. Not for the pain, but for what I built from it. Not for the betrayal, but for the strength I discovered in surviving it. That's the real story. Not revenge, not destruction. Transformation. The moment you realize that the worst thing that ever happened to you was actually the beginning of the best thing that ever happened to you. And that's a victory no one can ever take away.